everyone, welcome back to another video. So my apologies for missing last week's video. It was a little bit of a hectic week, just doing a bunch of running around, gathering parts, getting things together, and there wasn't anything that would have been extraordinarily interesting to put on video, and I didn't want to put out just a BS video for you guys. So today we're doing a bit of a shop update video, some new parts, new tools, a new project, and all kinds of interesting stuff. But first, let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room. Yes, the long hair is gone. So, as is tradition, and the tradition that was started last year, I farm my hair once each year, and I get it cut once each year and donate the hair to children with hair loss. So they are a non-profit organization that puts wigs together for children with illnesses that cause them to lose their hair, whether that be cancer, alopecia, or a number of other different ailments. It's a cause that I really like, and a cause that kind of warms my heart. And now I save money on haircuts throughout the year, but B, can take something that would otherwise just be thrown away and use it to make a difference. So I don't have a challenge for you guys or anything like that, and I don't have any relationship with children with hair loss aside from just donating hair to them. But if you guys do grow your hair out and do get it cut occasionally, it's a really good cause and something to consider, donating the hair as opposed to just letting it fall on the barbershop or the salon floor and being swept up and thrown away. It's something a little bit more noble and something that can actually make a difference in a kid's life that they're going through massive issues that most of us, it would be a nightmare for us. So now on to what's been going on at the shop and what's been going on around here lately. So first things first, I took a trip down to Bowling Green, Kentucky with a group of friends to go attend a streetcar takeover down there. And I opted to not film a whole lot while I was there, not enough to make a video at least. But I did get a few clips of my buddies' cars that were racing there. And on the way both to and from Bowling Green, I passed by a massive infrastructure project that is part of the Ford Motor Company, and it will end up being an electric battery plant. So hopefully you could see a bit of the construction in that clip right there. It's a little bit difficult to film and drive on the highway, but you could see, I think I counted 5 to 7 crawler cranes, and then it was a sea of construction site dump trucks and smaller cranes and all kinds of other really cool tools that frankly I would love to be set loose on that construction site and see what pieces of equipment I could figure out how to use and what kind of trouble I could get myself into. But that was that weekend rather, and it was a really good time, and my buddy Jody actually ended up winning his class there. So a huge congratulations to him. It's very, very well deserved. He's a hell of a good guy, and the trophy and the winnings couldn't have gone to a better person. So aside from that, I took another trip out to my buddy Ryan, the powder coater's place, and he got the valve covers and the sway bar squared away for the Mark II. Well, I'm back over here at Late Apex Performance Coatings, and my buddy Ryan got the Mark II parts knocked out, and man, do they look good. So after all the trials and tribulations with getting the black laid down on the valve covers, they came out absolutely beautifully. And you can see how smooth the powder laid out and everything else, and the surface finish that he put on the raised aluminum bits is absolutely beautiful as well. So those came out awesome, and what we thought was going to be next to impossible, Ryan managed to achieve, which was getting powder to look like zinc coating. And he did some pretty trick little things and little trade secret deals to get this to where this sway bar now looks about the same way it did when we initially bought it all those years ago. So I couldn't be happier. And Ryan, you are an absolute magician. Thank you very much. And I can't wait to get these things back to the shop, get the valve covers back on the engine, and start reassembling this car. So I filmed that little clip over at Ryan's place, but now that we are back at the shop here and I have a little bit more time, let's go ahead and take a look at the parts in the shop lights here and see just the phenomenal job that he ended up doing. So over here at the Mark II's new engine, we can see the beautiful new valve covers for it. And after the first go around with these, with them kind of having some weird, like almost look like spider web on them or something along those lines, Ryan did a bang up job going through, and he put his elbow grease and his sweat equity into these things. But if you guys can see, hopefully the camera will do it some justice, just how smooth and beautiful these things came out. And he did exactly what I was going to do with them and cleaned off these raised portions of them. So those are like a brushed aluminum essentially, with all of the black down in the crevices and everywhere else. And excuse the bunk hardware right now, those fasteners will end up getting swapped out. But those valve covers, and with how clean the rest of the engine is, it kind of really brings everything together, and it's exactly what I wanted. So Ryan, thank you very much for all of your hard work and taking it upon yourself to make these parts for this old but very special engine. Thank you for making them match the rest of it, and for making them worthy of going on this engine for that very special car. Finishing up on the powder coating front, we have the sway bar that Ryan knocked out, and this pretty much solidified my belief that he is a magician with powder coating tools and his skill set, as I gave him kind of an impossible task where I asked him, hey, with powder coat, can we make the sway bar look like it was zinc coated? As that kind of pays homage to the sway bar when I initially got it all those years ago. It was a zinc coated steel sway bar, and with this being kind of a restoration and tribute project for my dad, I wanted to keep some of the details of the original parts when I originally got them, as even something like the sway bar, the color that it initially was, is a fond memory in my mind. So this is what we ended up with, and I sat and looked through probably for about 2 cumulative hours all of the different powder coating colors all of the different powder coat colors rather, that Ryan's supplier offers, and finally settled on a color. It ended up being a multi-stage process, and after having some issues with the base coat having some bubbles from outgassing, Ryan was able to go in and apply this beautiful finish to it that is about as close to perfect as you could possibly ask for. So he did some pretty trade secret deals to it to give it kind of that color shift almost, and I'm not sure how well it will pick up on the camera here, but zinc coat, it'll typically color shift between like a gold to a rose to a green and maybe some blues in there, and he was able to do that, at least to whatever degree that we were able to, using one process to mimic another. And this thing is absolutely beautiful, and I've compared it with an old photo I found of the sway bar when we initially got it all those years ago, and it's pretty much a spitting image of it. So if you guys need any powder coating done, please contact Ryan at Late Apex Performance Coatings. I'll link his information down either in the comment section or in the description. And for any powder coating projects that you guys have, reach out to him. He will get you squared away, and he will get you set up with beautiful pieces and do a phenomenal job for you. So moving past the powder coating front, there is a new project in the shop. This is one that I'm very excited for. It's one that's been in the works for quite a while, and I'm looking at it behind the camera right now, and even a day after, or the day after it was dropped off, the amount of detail work and just how beautiful this thing is, it's kind of difficult for me to put into words exactly how cool this thing is. So let me shut up and let's go to some B-roll of this thing so you guys can see just how beautiful this thing is, and then we'll talk about why it's special and why it's here. So this beautiful, beautiful example of a neon SRT4 is my buddy Dave's car. And this car has a pretty significant amount of history and a pretty significant place in history in terms of things I've done here and things that have been a part of BPA. So this car was the impetus and was the beginning of my foray into SRT4 turbo manifolds. So this manifold down in here, that is the first SRT4 top mount that I ever built. And there's a pretty good community of SRT4 guys in Central Ohio, and the time came when Dave needed a new manifold for his car, and this is back when my buddies Bob and Sean were still working here with me, and we took the project on and ended up building something pretty cool and pretty beautiful, at least at that point in time. And Dave has knocked it out of the park with the detail work, which we'll talk about in just a few moments. But the parts that we built for it were this big front mount intercooler. I think it used a Garrett core. We built backdoor end tanks for it. Some shameless brand placement, BPA logo right on the front there. We built the catch can that sits down in that pocket right there. I think we built the fill pot, if I remember correctly, and then obviously all of the hot parts over here. We just talked about the manifold, and we did the hood / cowl exit, exhaust, and wastegate dump tubes. So this car is really cool, and when we did the work on it all of those years ago, the car was red, and Dave obviously has changed the color of it at this point in time. I believe he said it's a green from like 60s or 70s Mopars that he said for probably 6 months, if not longer than that, he sat and debated which color he wanted to go with. And Dave is a painter by trade, so he wanted something cool, wanted something different, wanted something special. And this car, he went to the extent of stripping everything out of it, putting the bare unibody on a rotisserie, and doing it that way. So as far as a unibody car is concerned, this car has essentially gone a frame-off restoration, and he's done a phenomenal job with making it something really cool and really special. So some of the details that you may just overlook if you glance at it, but the details like this are what bring a project like this together and make it something as special as it is. We first look at all of the fasteners throughout. All of the body fasteners are Speed Factory Fender hardware assortment deals. So they're titanium washer, titanium hex head bolt, and he has those all throughout, holding all the fenders and the bumper on. Everything else pretty much is all ARP 12-point hardware throughout, and the stuff looks really cool, looks really good. The carbon panels, like the block-off panels, are absolutely beautiful. We can see battery hookups right there. There's some more carbon block-off panels up underneath of the cowl, and it's just so nice to see something this clean and this beautiful. So the scuff marks on the bumper, don't worry about those. Those are some areas that he wasn't happy with, and he's going to end up repainting the bumper. But the paint is laid out absolutely beautifully, and this car is just something really cool and really neat. So we can also see a beautiful carbon fiber dash, as well as my chicken scratch notes of what we'll end up working on with this car. But inside of it, you can see some pretty beautiful cage work by a local guy by the name of Pat Martin. He's built cages for a few of my buddies, and he does a really nice job with them. But you can see this little kick-in bar right here. This little kick in the bar right here, rather, is to get it around some of the door panel. And yeah, Dave went ahead and he painted the whole inside of it as well. You can see a KDN lockout shifter, a Chase Bays staging brake slash hydraulic handbrake, nice MPI wheel, and here's where we start to get into some of the crazy details. So you can see the different colors, and hopefully the camera will do it justice, but he used this really cool, like hyper metallic grayish black for the accents against this green, and it looks just beautiful. And everywhere you look on this, that color is represented, or that kind of blackish color is represented here. It's represented on both of the B-pillar panels, or the B-pillar portions of the front and rear doors right there. The drag wing is painted the same color, and he even went as crazy, and this, it may be crazy to some of you, but for Dave, for me, and for a bunch of our buddies, stuff like this does make sense. Even on the inside of the gas door, you can see 12-point ARP hardware. Hopefully you can see that beautiful metallic black represented, and then he got an oil, or not an oil, but a fuel cap, brand new. It says E85 on it, as this is an ethanol car. So what I am going to be doing on this thing is a few kind of wrap up odds and ends before this thing goes to get wired and Dave can finish it up and start enjoying the car again. So we have a little bit of intake manifold modification, some intercooler tubing, a bung in the radiator, a belly pan, and an intake tube. And we'll go over all of those different portions of the project when we get to those points, as this will end up being another little build series. But at least for the intro right now, you guys can see just how beautiful this thing is. And I've been around at this point in time a pretty significant amount of SRT4s, and I can say that hands down, this is the most beautiful, the nicest, and has the most attention to detail that I've ever seen put into one of these cars. So Dave, you've done a phenomenal job, and hopefully I can do your work and all of the beautiful work that you've done justice with the parts that I'm building for it. And I can't wait to get started on this thing. So, moving from the cars for a moment, let's go and talk about some parts. So right here is a batch of freshly finished 2JZ GTE Gen R T4 twin scroll manifolds. And these are my flagship 2JZ manifolds. They are a tri-wide design with a billet collector and flange for two 44, 45, or 46 millimeter wastegates, full stainless construction, 321 stainless primaries and secondaries and all of that. It's essentially the best manifold that I'm able to come up with for a production manifold for 2JZ stuff. So these use my proprietary head flanges. They use a beautiful Elmer Racing billet merge collector for the secondary merge collector. And like I said, stainless throughout, all back purged, all TIG welded, all the good stuff. And at this point in time, I'll put the remaining number of them up on the screen, as we're currently in the middle of my vendor window as I film this video, or film this segment. And I'm not sure how many will be available still by the time that the video goes live, but that number will be somewhere on the screen. And if you guys are interested in one of these manifolds for your project, the available manifold section of my website is linked in the description below, so feel free to go over there, look at the manifolds that I have available, as well as the different merchandise offerings, the things from the garage sale. Or if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to shoot me an email and I will answer it as soon as I can. But one more quick look at these manifolds, as I'm really happy with how this batch came out. All the welds came out beautifully, and these are some of my nicest manifolds to date. It's new parts time. So, we have 3 boxes here. The bottom one, I'm sure you guys can figure out what that is. But in here and in here are some pretty interesting components. But we'll leave those for a moment, and we'll go ahead and open up the BC box. Start off the mini new parts extravaganza, we have a set of BC BR series coilovers for the Mark II. So the Mark II has been on Tokiko shocks and iBox springs since we put it together, essentially. And they did well, they were a good suspension setup, but the car's stance and its ride height and everything, I was never super pleased with. The kind of had a little bit of a reverse rake to it, or at least that's the way that it looked, and I was never super keen on that. So I contacted my buddies over at Drift HQ, and they got me set up with these, and these things are beautiful. So I'll pull one of the fronts out so we can look at it and talk a little bit about what we have going on here. So with these coilovers, starting with the top hat, you can see a nice 3-bolt flange. We have, if you guys can hear that, dampening adjustment, new hardware. We have adjustable camber with these plates right here, and obviously the coilover ride height adjustment and preload and everything else right down here. I told them that I wanted a spring rate that was more conducive to just street driving and cruising, as that car is not a race car, nor will it ever be a race car. So they got me set up with, I'm not sure what the spring rate is on them, but something moderate for that type use. And these coilovers, I believe, are a weld-in deal. So similar to like an E30 BMW or something along those lines. you actually weld the coilover to the knuckle, I believe. I may be misspeaking, so do not quote me on that, but from the little bit of research that I did, I believe that's the way that this all goes together. So this is one of the fronts, this is one of the fronts here, and if we pull one of the rears out, it looks like the rear is an adjustable spring bucket type thing. So you can see the coilover adjusters where my thumb is right there. I'm not going to pull this out of the bag right now as I'm not ready to start installing it just yet. But again, have nice spring, nice perch steel, nice adjusters, nice all of that. And obviously nice packaging, but you kind of expect that from BC. If we go over here, we have warranty card, some stickers, which are always very important, and I'm assuming that there are some instructions here. Yeah, install instructions, all kinds of things like that. Should make this a pretty smooth, pretty easy install. So once the subframe and everything is back in the Mark II, then the next order of business before it goes back down on the ground will be to get these installed, and that shouldn't be too big of a deal, hopefully. And then it will finally be on some actual adjustable suspension, and I can get the ride height dialed in just the way that I want it, and maybe even think about some new wheels at that point in time. Moving past the coilovers, we have the second largest box, and this is a pretty cool one, something I'm pretty excited about. And this is one of the 2 parachutes for the Mark IV. So these, I won't be able to install them just yet as I'm waiting on a drag wing for the car, and I don't want to position the parachutes somewhere that looks reasonably correct and have it not be correct and end up having to modify the parachute mount, as I have a pretty trick way that I want to do it that I don't want to do the same work twice. So even though these won't be going on right now, we can at least talk about the way that they work. So these are a spring assist parachute. And a normal parachute, I guess something kind of like what's on Dave's car over there, they are still spring assisted, kind of, but not in the same manner that these are. So on Dave's car, or at least we can use Dave's car as an example, the way that a normal parachute works is you have your release lever, wherever you position it, you reach, you pull it, and if you see in the pack kind of the circular shape that it has, the pilot chute, or the first chute that comes out and grabs air and pulls the rest of the canopy out, is actually a bit of fabric around a spring. So when Dave pulls the chute lever in this thing, it'll pull this cable or retract this cable back, provided you don't have a retention pin in it. When that pin comes out, this spring in the pilot chute shoots out. It's tethered to the main canopy. It pulls the main canopy out, and then at that point in time, the parachute is deployed. So these work well, but I wanted something that was a little bit faster responding, and I wanted to get 2 chutes. A, because it looks cool, but B, because I think it's NHRA rules require a car that is going over 200 miles an hour in the quarter, which the Mark IV should be able to do. 200 miles an hour or more in the quarter mile, you need to have 2 chutes for it. So the other chute is identical to this, so I'm just going to show this one. But these are Stroud Setup, Stroud Safety, that's the company that I like to use for parachute stuff. And the way that this spring launch deal works, which I guess, yeah, we can actually take the bag off of it so we can see the spring launcher by itself. You can see this circular disc right here that's attached to the top of the spring, and you can see this tether on the inside. So these on the bottom side of them have this crank right here, and as I turn that, you can see the spring moving, and you put some sort of a socket or something like that on here, it will retract the actual spring launcher down into its housing. And then when you have it retracted, you have this remove before flight pin deal right here. Once it's fully retracted, you slide that pin in through that port right there. It locks everything in place, so that way you can put your actual parachute cable or the release cable in place on the bag, on the pack. And once that's all set, you pull the pin out. It's armed at that point in time, and as soon as you pull the release lever, and there's no retention for the chute bag itself, this big old spring right here is going to shove that chute out and shove it right into whatever 180, 200 mile an hour airstream that that's going on around the car, and then you'll stop in a hurry. So in addition to these, they also have air launcher systems, which operates kind of under the same principle, but rather than being a spring, you have a little pneumatic ram on the inside of it. That those you can have it be like an electronic release or something along those lines, which is cool, but I liked the idea of this being a little bit more simple of a system, not being reliant on the 1/4 inch airline line or hose or whatever. That stuff can rupture, and yeah, you still have a manual release lever at that point in time. But if I get used to using a button and the chute doesn't deploy, then I'm scrambling around the cabin trying to find the release handle, and that doesn't seem like the best idea to me, or at least that isn't the way that I wanted to do it. So I went with the spring launch setups. Again, both the air launcher and the spring launcher are both perfectly adequate, perfectly sufficient, perfectly acceptable options. This is just the way that I want it to go, and if I decide I don't like this neck, I can always change it out for air launchers later down the line. The last new part that we have today is actually going to be the part that we install as part of the functional portion of this video. It may not look like a whole lot, but what this is a Pro EFI iBoost switch. And what these are used for, the name is a bit of a misnomer, as it is much more than just a boost controller, but this is essentially a 5-position tune selection switch. So we follow the instructions that they provided right here, pin it correctly and all of that, and get it mounted via their handy little drill template right there. This will give us the ability to set 5 different levels or 5 different tunes or 5 different ways that the car operates. And you can see they offer a nice little sticker right here that will tell you which position that you're in, and this is just a simple, this is position 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So via whatever predetermined deals or outputs or whatever that Bob sets up in the computer will equate to 5 different power levels or different traction control levels, boost control strategies, etc., etc. There's a ton of different ways that you can use this, and the more that I thought about it, the more that it seemed like a really good idea to put one of these in the car, as track conditions can change. There is never a constant in terms of the surface you're racing on, the amount of traction that you have at your disposal, so on and so forth. The ability to change tunes on the fly is a very handy thing, as you could be sitting ready to go through the water box and see the car in front of you either knock the tire off of it or not be able to get down the track. And if you have an idea of the amount of power and so on and so forth that that car that just had issues makes, then you can kind of make an educated decision sitting in the cabin and say, I'm on setting 4 right now, the car in front of me just stuck, let's turn it up more, going clockwise, or the car just knocked the tire off of it, let's go down a level or 2 and have a greater chance of success, or a greater likelihood of success in your racing efforts. So it's a simple 3-wire deal right here, and what I'll do is get this mounted in the car, get it trimmed kind of to length, get it loomed and everything else, get a Deutsch connector put on it, and at that point in time, being that I'm not a wiring guy, and I guess I'm sure I could follow along with the instructions here, but in the next day or two, Bob is supposed to stop out and give me a hand with the wiring side of it, so just to be safe, I'll probably wait for him to do that. But that doesn't prevent us from at least getting it mounted and getting all of the caveman work taken care of. So I guess let's go ahead, go over to the car, pull the switch panel out, and see where I'm going to mount this and see about getting it put in the car. Over in the car now, I just put the switch panel back in place and it fits and everything. I couldn't be happier with this. So you can see the iBoost switch right down here, and you can see easy to reach, and even when I'm strapped back in the seat, I'll still be able to reach down and be able to toggle whichever tune that I need at a particular time. So that is all squared away with what I can do on it right now, and I will probably end up coming in, and you guys might not be able to see, let me zoom in, maybe that little notch right next to my fingernail right there. It has a little groove machined into it as kind of a pointing, it's like a pointer directional indicator deal. And what I will end up doing is getting some model paint or maybe some nail polish or something and putting a little streak of paint right there just so I can see a little bit more easily what setting that I'm in at any particular time. Well, with the iBoost switch now installed into the Mark IV, and Dave's car here, and manifolds finished, and new parts, and all of the other different cool things that are going on here, and that we showcased in this video, I think that'll be about the end of this one. So I know it was a lot of talking in this episode, but that's just kind of the way that shop update videos go. So Thomas's Supra is gone, back in his possession. He can work on that thing, get it wired up, and ready for him to enjoy. And now we're on to Dave's car to get the fabrication done on it for him so he can do the same as Thomas, get it wired, get it finished up, and be able to enjoy it. And we'll be doing the same thing very soon with the super projects of mine here. This week at some point, Dave will make his way out here. He can rework whatever paint stuff he wants to rework on this thing to pretty it up and make it able to start being reassembled. So very excited for that. Very excited to get the new coilovers on it, to get the new engine in it, to get all of the beautiful powder coated stuff that Ryan knocked out. That phenomenal faux zinc coating on the sway bar, this beautiful satin black on the subframe. This is going to be a really cool and really nice car, and we'll have a whole lot of welding and fabrication to do on it when the time comes. But that is not right now. That will be in upcoming weeks and upcoming episodes, and I look forward to taking you guys along on that journey with me. So before I ramble on forever, as I think we covered most of the bases, if not all of them that I wanted to, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. So thank you guys as always for tuning in, for coming on this wild journey with me between my cars, between customer cars, all the stuff that's going on here and that does go on here. It's all cool. I have fun with it, and I hope that you guys enjoy it as well. So with that being said, that'll be the end of this one. That'll be the end of my rambling, and that'll be that for right now. So as always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and be sure to check the website out. If any of the manifolds you're interested in, or for merch or anything else. And with all of that being said, I will see you guys in the next episode.
When I look into their eyes above my